Hello, hello. Sorry about being a bit late today. We've got quite a bit of things going on. We're actually packing up, about to head back to the States. And so that's been a crazy experience trying to get ready. We actually leave out, well, Monday morning from here, but we fly out on Tuesday. So apologize for the mess. Apologize if things aren't completely working properly, but we're gonna be here. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna talk about the Sony A6700. Talk about whether or not it's a disappointment or whether it was worth the wait. Or maybe if it's a little bit more nuanced than that. We'll also touch on the Fujifilm X-S20. I want to, hopefully, I'm getting that right. Talk a little bit about that and see kind of how it's comparing up to the competition with the Canon R7 as well as the Sony 6700. We'll just generally talk cameras. I'm going to go through some of the rumors, the recent rumors. I actually have been a little bit out of touch with some of the rumors myself. So there's some things that may surprise me, and I hope that maybe they'll surprise you too, and we can go over those. I'm going to just kind of chat a little bit, see if people start to fall in. If you are watching and you want to get this out to more people, be sure to hit that thumbs up. It really helps out the video, as well as this is kind of like a back and forth conversation type thing. So if you're here and you want to chat, uh, absolutely, please do. It makes for a much better show. It makes my job a lot easier, but also more enjoyable for myself, and I hope for you as well. Let me quickly go over here to the comments and see if anybody has dropped into the chat yet. Probably not, because I did start late. No, we haven't had anybody jump into the chat just yet. That is completely cool and understandable. Next week, I will be back in America, and I should be, uh, with a different setup. It'll probably be even different than what my setup has been in the past. I'm going to try to switch things up just a bit and kind of switch a few things up with the channel. I realized that I kind of thinking that I want to turn it more into live streaming, but at the same time, maybe do more live streams. So if say some big news drops or a camera's being announced, tried my best to hop on right away and give my first impressions with everybody, and then maybe once a week, like we're doing right now, have like a full on longer live stream. I'm thinking that's maybe an interesting format with some of the life changes that are going to be happening when we go back to America with work on my job, as well as work with editing the travel videos that I've been creating. So yeah, sorry about rambling, but I'm trying to get and see if more people start flooding in here. If not, that's okay, because a lot of times people watch it on the replay. That's when we get the most viewers, anyways. But of course, I appreciate anybody here live. Let's see, is anybody jumping in the chat? No, not just yet. So I'm going to jump into some of the main topics because, it's a little bit late here in Vietnam, and I have to still pack quite a bit. So we'll have fun. But let's go ahead and jump into some stuff. What I like to do first, before I get into like the main topic, because hopefully more people will be showing up. I like to go over some of these rumor sites, go over Canon rumors, Sony Alpha rumors, etc., and just refresh it and kind of have a live reaction. And sometimes we get some breaking news right away that's exciting. Sometimes there's a news story that I haven't covered yet, and I have my thoughts about it, and some of you guys have y'all's thoughts as well. So yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen here. If you are here and you're watching, you want to get this out to more people, hit that thumbs up. It really helps out the channel, or really helps out this video. Okay, starting off here, we're at Canon Rumors. Let me go ahead and hit refresh and see if we get lucky. Okay, so let me scroll down here. This is already pretty interesting right here, but I'm gonna uh, avoid the temptation of clicking right away just to see what we got. Okay, so this is something I'm not even gonna have it as a main topic, even though maybe I'm kind of being somewhat foolish not to have it as a main topic. Man, I was hoping I would see a R5C firmware update. I know they recently did one, but they should add C-Log 2 to that camera. Anyways, but right here, this is just a CR1. Um, and I'm not necessarily saying that it's not legitimate, but I guess my concern is, or at least my inclination is that people are kind of looking around for whatever rumors they can get. Canon rumors doesn't have too much on the plate as far as that goes. Seemingly, there hasn't been that many major releases from Canon in a while. Um, Possibly a Canon R5 Mark II and a Canon R1, which Canon R1 is like kind of the unicorn camera that we all know exists. We don't all know unicorns exist, but basically it's the camera that everybody's been wondering and waiting for to see if, Canon's really going to go above and beyond all the competition here. So like I said, this is a CR1, which means it's at their, like ranking of pretty much their lowest totem pole, meaning that like, oh, they just kind of heard about it. They don't necessarily put a lot of weight behind it, but let's go ahead and speculate. It's just the first little bit. So they talk about here, there was a rumor before saying that this would be like the best EVF ever, but I think that just basically meant the best EVF in a full frame camera, or sorry, in a Canon camera. Here they say it will have a 7 million dot EVF, which is a little bit lower than what is in the Sony cameras. That is obnoxious. I wonder if I can hit it without going to a commercial. Okay, here we go. It's a little bit lower. That's what's in like the Sony flagship, the A7, the A9, or sorry, the A1 and the A7S3 both have a 9 million dot EVF, as well as the A7R5. But still, 7 million dots is pretty excellent. It says it will have a 0.7 inch. Oh, okay, that's the size of the EVF. And this is pretty interesting. 60 to 240 hertz refresh rate. Yeah, I was about to say that sounds like a variable refresh rate possible. So yeah, that sounds like it. 400 nits brightness, blackout free, which to me is a pretty commonplace thing at this point. So I mean, nothing necessarily jumps out to me. It's definitely a fast one. It definitely sounds like it's going to be a good EVF. I don't necessarily think it's a super above and beyond. Like I guess not super above and beyond what Sony has already been offering. I believe that Sony's 240 frame hertz with the A1. I believe so, but it's possible that it was 120. But I'm pretty sure that they have this going. I'm not sure the brightness on the Sony. I know they're blackout free as well. So, I mean, this looks like a perfectly adequate EVF. I think when you get to this level of, million dots or whatever, and this level of clarity, and that's such a small screen, I think that, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be better to be higher, but at the same time, I think I would much rather them somewhat try to keep the cost down, and or rather even innovate in other areas, because this is well more than adequate for most people in most scenarios. So yeah, sounds pretty good, but nothing necessarily groundbreaking. All right, let's go back here. Let's hop up here to some of these patents. Some of these patents never, nothing comes of them, but it's very interesting to see. And, these are legit patents, and sometimes we do get some stuff out of it. This is interesting. It says a 200 millimeter f2L image stabilized lens. So, yeah, I mean, this is pretty great. I'm not going to say it's like 100% needed, because I mean, I know you have a 70 to 200 f2.8. This is a prime. You are looking at a 2. Yeah, I think it just kind of depends on and what you're looking to do out of things. I like the versatility of a zoom camera, or sorry, a zoom lens, especially when you're thinking of something like wildlife. And I know a 70 to 200 is kind of at just the line of wildlife. That's kind of like your first, distance type lens. Some people want to go much further for wildlife. Um, I think it's interesting. I could see it being like a sports lens or something of that nature. But I mean, I just like the idea of having a zoom. But I do know that there are some people, like you have Frono's Photo and things like that. They swear by the prime. It would be an interesting portrait lens. I think at 200, it would be a little bit awkward on your face. You'd start to get that weird, just uh, the weird, is it a contortion? I guess wouldn't maybe be the proper word, but at that focal length, you get some weird looks on the face. About a 135 is usually as high as I would like to see on most like portrait photography, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's people that really like dig a 200. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I think it's interesting. I think it's cool to see that Canon's doing some lenses and some ideas that a lot of people aren't doing. So one thing I will say is, yeah, another cool lens from Canon. Don't know if it's the most needed lens, and I think would be way more needed is some third party third party support. Down here, as they say, another one right here. So optical two formulas. So these is RFS lenses. These are greatly needed, especially for like their RF. There was previously a patent for a 11 to 24 f4 that you can see here. So this is pretty interesting. A 19 to 18 f4. So I believe that would be basically a 15 to about a 15 to 27, I think, something like that. So it could be a nice little lens for some vlogging. Right here is a 10 to 18. So I don't know. I doubt they would do both. Or, well, okay, this one right here, they're not saying an S. So if this is like that would be a very interesting lens if this is actually full frame. And I wonder if they could possibly pull something like this off. Excuse me. Considering it's a f4, could they make something like this that isn't like the fisheye lens? That's still super wide to not have a fisheye lens. Or yeah, so I would like to see it. I think it'd be interesting. But I just do wonder. 10 to 18 on a full frame would be different. I mean, I have the 15 to 35 f2, so I don't think it would be for me, but it would probably be much lighter, and definitely, a 10 millimeter would be pretty dang wide. I can see it good for real estate, because with real estate, having an f4 works fine on a full frame camera. Um, Especially with my thought process is some people, want it super wide because you don't get a lot of light. Um, Sometimes you don't can't control the light perfectly in real estate scenario. Um, but with full frame lenses or full frame sensors, low light is pretty decent. And I do like kind of up in the f stop just slightly to give that layered look and not have something that's super flat. So sometimes, you get a little bit more layers when you jump up the f stop and more things are in focus. Sometimes with f 2.8, depending on where you're looking, of course, but sometimes you can get some things might not be as sharp and you're not getting that depth of field that you would get. So to me, an f4 10 to 18 would be almost ideal for that scenario. All right. Let me jump back over here to the comments before I continue on and see if anybody's jumped into the comments. Vu says, Matt, hi. That's my uh, that is my brother-in-law. That's my brother. Yeah, so appreciate you watching and showing your support. Appreciate you doing all that you do. I mean, he's helping out with we're staying with my family here in Vietnam right now, and he's been great. He's been helping with my son today as we've been packing and setting up for the live stream tonight. Don TV said, Matt, man, I appreciate you being here. It's been a long time. Since I don't feel like I've seen you in a while. So I don't know if it's just the way the time frames have been working out. But I'm glad to see that you're here, and I hope so far you're enjoying the content. If you have any questions, shoot it back and forth. We're going to be talking about the A6700 coming up here very shortly. But yeah, if you are here and you're watching, hit that like button and it'll get it out to more people. We can have a more in-depth conversation. But I appreciate everybody that's here just watching, as well as hopefully more people can comment as well. Yeah. So let me jump back over here and start going through some of these rumors again. All right, Sony Alpha rumors. Let's just go ahead and jump over to here and see if we get lucky. See what happens. The rolling of the dice. Okay, so this was interesting. I have not went over the reviews of this lens. But just from like the titles, I'm hearing some pretty interesting stuff. Excuse me. But they launched this 70 to 200 f4 macro G2. I actually had the G1 for a while, and it was, more than adequate in a whole lot of ways. I didn't look too much about it, but I think a lot of so far, a lot of people are talking good about it. At least like the titles seem to be like, wow, this is great. And I'm guessing if they're following the trend of with most of their second generation lenses, they usually get lighter, smaller, sharper, faster. So I mean, it's usually an overall win-win. It's also cool that this is a macro. I don't remember if the version 1 was a macro. I don't think it was. So if this is a macro as well, that's pretty great. Right now, I'm sticking with the Tamron 35 to 150. Yeah, I just find it a little bit more useful for myself, but I am tempted to do some kind of interesting stuff. So I've been dual wielding, dual systeming it for a while with the Canon R5C as well as the Sony A7S III. And I mean, really, the overall, the Sony A7S III is just, it's really been the camera that has worked the best for me. The low light performance is great. 4K isn't as sharp as, of course, the downsampled 8K from the Canon R5C, and I do appreciate certain stuff about it. I have some LUTs that match the colors fairly good, as well as working in DaVinci Resolve. Some has helped me match the colors even more. So that's not as big of an issue. But one thing that is an issue that I'm learning as I travel, and I do a lot of travel videography, and more videography than photography. I hate switching lenses, and I know that sounds like a super I don't know, a super, maybe it's just like, I guess first world. I don't know if it's a first world problem. Maybe I'm just being a little greedy, but the idea is, sometimes you're at a location and you have your bag, and you might just be, maybe you're taking a tour, you're walking somewhere, you're in a temple, and a lot of times just taking that extra time just to pick up, switch off the lens, um, you know, and I'm switching maybe to a 35, my Tamron 35 to 150, which is great. It seems like it would be, covering most bases, but a lot of times I'm needing more of a wide angle lens. And so I have the 18 or the 17 to 28 that I keep on the camera most of the time. And a lot of times I just wind up not switching off of that lens because I need it at hand. Usually I'm shooting more wide because if you're going to a location, you want it to look bigger than not necessarily what it is, but you want to have that grand scale and that sense of awe, especially in travel videos, or at least the styles that I like to make. But I would like some diversity with my shots, but I just wind up most of the time not taking it off and just using clear image zoom, because I also want genuine reactions to places. So if I'm walking somewhere and I'm seeing something, and then I want to comment on it, then I want to be able to quickly turn my camera around and, give my commentary on something. And if I have a 35 on my camera, then it's kind of an issue. The reason I'm kind of just rambling about that is because I'm thinking about selling the Tamron 35 to 150, and since I am dual wielding with Canon, go ahead and getting their 70 to 200. So I basically have, you know, two cameras on me that I don't necessarily have to switch in and out of. I can just say, oh, I got a 70 to 200 on one that sticks there, and I have you know, my Sony driver back and forth. So I don't know if I'll do it anytime soon because I'm going back to America, and I really won't be traveling as much there. I'll be editing primarily and trying to make the footage last as long as it can. But maybe in like 6 or 7 months, hopefully we'll be possibly heading back here. I mean, our plan is all goes according to plan that we will be heading back here in order to continue our travel channel. So yeah. But yeah, let me know. What do you have y'all heard much about this 70 to 200? Is this something that would interest you? Was the first one a macro? I don't think it was. If it isn't, then there's that. Let's see if really quick if I get something here that just you know strikes me. So minus thoughts on the A6700. So this is Andrea. He says, and why I'm going to buy the A7C Mark II instead. So we don't know exactly when that is coming. I mean, apparently he believes that it is coming fairly soon. It makes sense, but at the same time, with the camera cells of the A7R4 being as strong as they've been, like it's been usually like number one, and well, it's been in the top 10 in two slots. It has usually it's like one of the top one or two, and then it's you know the same camera but with the kit lens. So I don't know if it makes 100% sense to drop an A7C Mark II right now, just because I don't know if they'll want to cannibalize that market. And then also, where does it fit in with the A6700, especially considering, you know, now they have that ZV, whatever it's called, the ZVE1, which is like 2200, and you have the FX3. I don't know if it 100% makes sense to drop it at this point, because where would the price sit? I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, because I think it should happen at some point, but I could almost see them delaying that camera, even though most people are calling for it this year. I could almost see it being next year instead. Because if we really think about it, Sony, we all pretty much know Sony loves to recycle their cameras in a lot of ways. What was it? The APS-C was like the 6400 and the 6600, and multiple cameras had that same sensor in it. You had um, very similar specs. Well, the A7S3 at this point is in multiple cameras. You have the A7S3 sensor that is in that, the FX6, the FX3, and now the ZVE1 all share that same sensor and general layout with similar processing power. You have the A7R5 that has the A7R4 sensor in it. So they really like to recycle things, and that was kind of the same thing they did with the A7C. It was essentially an A7 IV with a different body style, and I think it was one card slot. So there were some differences, but overall it was like basically identical specs. And if you remember, or if I remember correctly, rather, it was a little bit later in the life cycle of the A7 IV. I feel, or A7 III. I feel like it would make more sense to hold off about a year, get close towards the end of the life cycle of the A7 IV, finally see some drop in sales, which it hasn't as of yet, and then drop the A7C Mark II. I know some people are waiting for that camera, and I'm not saying that that's happening. I have no inside source, but I just feel like that would make more sense to me. Update. Okay, so I don't really care about that camera right now because it doesn't need any updates, in my opinion. And it's a 0.1. So anyways, let me go here back to the comments, see what's going on. Okay. Colonel Angus says, Reviewers have said that the 70 to 200 has a 0.5 magnification and isn't really a macro lens without an extension tube or teleconverter. Okay, so that's interesting. I guess I don't know why they're marketing it as such. Or maybe this is just a misleading headline. Um, but I mean, it's still depending on. I guess it depends on the sensor you get. I think if you have the A7R5, um, that as long as you can get good composition, then I mean you can zoom in like crazy with that lens with that amount of megapixels. If it's a sharp lens, you with that sensor you can just crop in like crazy. So even if you can only get that close, if you have a high megapixel sensor like the A7R4 or 5, it could be pretty impressive. Yeah, that's thank you for letting me know though. I appreciate that. Appreciate that information. Uh, all right. Let me go ahead back here and go ahead and share my screen. If you're here, you're watching, please comment. Let's go back and forth. Let's talk before I get to the main topics. Which actually I don't have as long to go tonight because my son needs to come in here to sleep, and usually he sleeps in the other room. But we're packing and doing things like that. So yeah. But I will continue. We still have some time here. Um, let's see. Nothing really is standing out to me. So, yeah, this is the X100V. So this camera apparently is like selling like hotcakes, and maybe I don't know why I missed that trend. Matty Hapoya was talking about how it's a multiple year old camera, but it's really taken off. I think I heard Chelsea and Tony talk about it as well, just because of the aesthetics and the younger generation loving it. And I think it's very interesting. Not the necessarily a concept. I think people are finally catching up to how amazing Fuji really is with their film simulations. The recipe situation is super cool. I can't remember if you can do that. I think you can pretty much do that in almost any Fuji camera, if I'm not mistaken. You can set up a similar recipe system and use that. I don't think it's like limited to this camera, but maybe just because this is a smaller point and shoot with that unique vintage style, and the fixed lens, I think maybe that's turning a lot of people on to this camera. But yeah, super cool. I think it's interesting. I just wouldn't personally spend that much money for it, like what other people are spending. Seems a little bit off to me. But yeah. And everybody's looking for that film look right now. And I'm not saying that I get film look maybe hasn't ever gone away. But I do kind of feel like right now it's a more of a craze than it's been in a long time. And I get people don't like the super clinical look of digital, but I do think maybe people are pushing in the film a little too far. um, this is probably sacrilege to say, but I just think that it might be somewhat of a fad for people to be like, oh, I want everything to look like film right now. And I get it to a degree, and it depends on what you're shooting and how you're shooting. But I just feel, I could be wrong, but I feel like people are really pushing that right now, and that by the time, and I mean, it's never went away. There's always been a love of film, and it's cool what you can do with these digital cameras now to replicate or simulate some film looks. But I just do think that maybe people are pushing really far in that direction. That there will be a pendulum swing slightly back towards a more digital, clean look coming up soon. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just completely off and out of touch, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. All right. I'm probably just like lost a million subscribers by giving that opinion. I don't even know if I believe it. Okay. All right. right. So Nikon rumors. Are you seeing anything interesting here? It's in stock at Best Buy. No, nothing. Okay, so it has a good sensor rating, so that's good. But I'm pretty sure it's the same as this. I mean, it's the same Z9 sensor. So if they gave it a different rating, I don't know why they did. I'm not seeing anything that's worth truly stopping and looking at Nikon rumors. Unfortunately, I don't suspect anything or expect anything from Nikon anytime soon, and I think that's a shame because I really think they need like a Z6 Mark III to work with their new system and their new autofocusing, because that's really going to be the camera that, even though the Z8 is selling great, but if you want to bring in, if you're getting people to kind of that are maybe not their first camera, but they're kind of coming up to full frame, or they're somewhat wanting entry, you need like that $2,000 to $2,500 mark camera if you want people to choose your camera from most people at least. Astro Design and Samyang joined the L Mount Alliance. I don't know how I feel about this. And the reason being, I think it's interesting because Samyang basically got kicked off of the RF mount. I guess I just don't know enough about their lenses to say if they're going to be a great addition to it as far as that goes. Because I mean, I know you have Sigma, which are great. You have Panasonic, which do a decent job, and you have Leica, which is on a whole nother level. So Samyang definitely will be more affordable from what I've seen, but I just don't know if the quality is super there. I think there was some really good lenses on the RF mount initially, but the RF mount just doesn't give it any support as far as the autofocus. But if it's in the L Mount Alliance, maybe it can work well with those Panasonic cameras, and maybe they could use some cheaper lenses. But yeah. All right. We're about to get to our main topic. So let me go back here to the comments to see if I lost anybody. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start the main topic. I don't see anybody here chatting, and that's okay. A lot of people watch this after the fact, but if you are here and you want to chat, that's always a welcome thing to do. All right. Do we want to start the main topics? The main topic being, the A6700 is the camera of the day. I'm going to give my thoughts on it, whether or not I think it was worth the wait, whether it was a disappointment, or basically what we expected, or the camera we deserved. It's definitely been a very anticipated camera. Let's go for it. So the A6700 is out, and there's some mixed thoughts on it coming from different reviewers, and so I'm going to give my opinion about this camera, whether or not it was a disappointment or if it lived up to the long-awaited hype. The long-awaited hype doesn't quite make sense, but let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen here. So we have the A6700. This is a B&H. So I'm going to be able to give you kind of an overview of the specs as I talk about it. I've been watching some information about it just to kind of get a general idea. The look of it, there's nothing that's spectacular in my mind. It's a fairly basic design, but it's not all about the looks. It's about what you can get out of it primarily. Sony's never been the sexiest of cameras on the outside. We have the 26 megapixel sensor that is the same sensor that was in the FX3. The FX30. We've known about this sensor for a while. We know that it was going to be this sensor. Nothing groundbreaking here. It's the same Bionz XR image processor. I do think, if I'm not mistaken, I need to go in and look for sure, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Well, it says AI recognition. So does this have this separate AI chip in it? I can't remember if I think I saw that, but I know it does have similar AI features that are in the FX or the ZVE1. And so that should be, it's definitely better for the autofocus. And so that's a big draw. You have 4K 120. I think it's a very minor crop in 4K 120. Nothing too much, but it is a crop sensor camera. So there is that. 4K 60 uses the full readout of the camera, the full size of the camera or lens. Golly, it's late. I'm pretty tired, to be honest. So I'm slurring out my words. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Next week I will be in America, and this will be daytime for me. Right now it's nighttime. Anyways, yeah, 4K 60, all of it's 10-bit, 422. You know, these things to me make sense, and they're not necessarily surprises. They're not groundbreaking in any way, but they're very solid specs. We pretty much knew what the specs of the video was going to be. It was going to be very similar to the FX30, and that's pretty much exactly what it is. You have the 5-axis image stabilization. This is probably the biggest disappointment about this camera. I think they should be able to do more with this camera than what they do with their full frame, and they just aren't. So, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I do not know the reason why Sony's doing that. If it's a lazy situation, I know that Casey from Camera Conspiracies. He was into the boardroom with it, and he had some pretty interesting takes. I don't know why Sony does what they do. They did address a lot of things here, and so it definitely helps, but it's just not. I think that that's a big thing for a camera like this for video. If you're doing vlogging and stuff, why not have better image stabilization? Just not sure I understand that. The autofocus is going to be spectacular. Sony cameras have spectacular autofocus, and I'm sure this will be no less amazing. So it has the internal mic. Yeah, so that was kind of cool that they're doing their like a nicer mics in these things. But I mean, I think most people who are doing this in any kind of real way or want to have a mic jack. Of course, it has the inputs. It has the digital hot shoe, which is great with their new mic as well. USB streaming, nothing ground shaking or earth shattering here. So this is, I wouldn't call it a disappointment, but it shoots 11 frames per second in electronic and in stills, and with the shutter, the mechanical shutter. The electronic looks like it's really bad rolling shutter. With the electronic shooting, not really bad, but if you're shooting action, you definitely want to just use the mechanical shutter, and it's the same amount of speed, so there's really no shock there. It has all the initial same user LUTs and all that type of stuff. The big downsides, and I'm going to go back a little bit to the frames per second because I think that's worth talking about more. But let me go ahead and finish out. The screen sucks. The LCD screen and pretty much all Sony cameras are terrible. The only ones that's really got an update is the A7R5 at this point. From my recollection, you had the A7R4A. They had like a nicer screen, which is weird because I think most people thought that those, it was going to be like the last cameras with the crappy screen, but it's back. Can't remember if the A7 4 has a better LCD screen. Hopefully it does. I think it does have a little bit better, but oh man, they have just dropped the ball with that. And then also I hear the EVF is really, really sucky in a lot of ways. So yeah, let's go back to this 11 frames per second. Oh yeah, well, it's only one card slot. That is another disappointing thing to me. 11 frames per second is fine. It's just not amazing when you compare it to something like the R7, which can have 15 frames per second in mechanical or up to 30 frames per second in the electronic. So I don't know why they're lagging so far behind Canon here. The buffer does seem to be better, but at the same time, they're shooting so fewer frames per second. That I guess if you were up in the I think it's like a 4 or 5 second buffer, and I think Canon's is like something like 2 seconds, but you're getting that many more shots, so it's very similar buffer rate. I think that the R7, I could be mistake. I think it has 2 card slots, so that's a big advantage there. Um, I guess my slight disappointment with it. I mean, this is a $1,400 camera, so there's nothing wrong with this camera at this price point. I guess my disappointment with this camera is that I know a lot of people who shoot Sony who want a great wildlife APS-C camera, and they really just, to me, they haven't got it here. I'm not saying people can't use it for that. I'm not saying that people won't use it for that. I just feel like this isn't, in my mind, anywhere close to like a flagship APS-C, what it should or could be. I think it would be nice to see them bring out something and kind of compete somewhere more with Fujifilm on the higher end. Put a stacked sensor in. I know Fujifilm has its issues with autofocus, and I'm not saying it's better in all regards, but I'm just talking about competing at that price point. I would just be interested. I know a lot of people would be interested. I wouldn't buy it because I'm not really into APS-C, but I know a lot of people who wished that this would be a flagship APS-C camera, and I think it's a worthy update, but I just don't think it is the camera that a lot of people maybe were looking for. And I could be completely wrong. Drop in the comments and let me know if I am completely wrong. I feel like it's good in a lot of ways. I just wish it would have went a little further. I wish it was priced even more, or this was I hope to see like an actual flagship APS-C camera one day, because I know a lot of people are really hoping for that. I'd like to see like a 20 frames per second camera, at least with a stacked sensor, like a $2,000 APS-C. And maybe they don't think the market's there for it, but I think from, at least from my small sample size of the people that I've interacted with on this channel, they seem to be very interested in something like that. But drop in the comment section and let me know, was this a camera that excited you? Do you think that they didn't go far enough with this camera, or do you think this is about right for the price point? I think it is a solid camera. I just don't know if it's the flagship APS-C that a lot of people were hoping it would be. But let me know. I could be completely wrong. All right, let me go back up, go back and go to the comments section, see if anybody is talking. We don't have many talkers. If you are here in the comments and you want to chat, and you can chat, um, give me your thoughts on this camera. I don't know if I think that that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. I really think it's impressive on the video specs. I think the FX30 was impressive on the video specs. I think it's cool that it has the EVF and the new autofocusing features. I just wish that they would have pushed it further. For a lot of people, I know that, um, for I guess for some particular people that I know that are just wanting a great APS-C camera, it just doesn't seem like this is it. It's good, but it's not a mini A1, which I think a lot of people are wanting, or a mini A9 even. It's just not that, and maybe Sony will never create that, or at least not in any kind of foreseeable future. Maybe that's just not in the cards. But I think that there's a market for it, because people want a good APS-C camera. But those are just my thoughts on it. Okay. Well, it looks like we're not getting too many chatting today, which is absolutely fine. I appreciate everybody that's watched, but I'm having a crazy tired spell. I mean, it is past 11 here. It's coming up closer to 12. So I don't know why I'm so tired. I guess I've been packing all day, so maybe my energy level's low, but I want to make sure that if I'm here and I'm talking to everybody, I don't want to be, if we were chatting back and forth and interacting, I would definitely stay for it. But I've went over the main topics that I think I really want to touch on. So I hate to cut the live stream short, but I got a lot of packing to do before I head back to the States. hopefully next week will be a little bit of a different situation. I don't know. I might have some jet lag going on, but I will definitely plan on doing a live stream. Now more people are flooding in, and this is how it always works. So people start showing up right when I'm about to log out. If you are here and you want to drop in a quick comments, go ahead. I'll sit here for just a couple more seconds. Are you what are y'all thoughts on the A6700? I kind of gave my thoughts on it, but if you're here, let me know. Was this the camera that you were looking for? Okay, I think most people are not necessarily here to chat, and that's okay because sometimes people just like to listen. Um, so yeah, I appreciate everybody for showing up. I'm going to go ahead and call it a night for now. I am just have a lot to get done. I appreciate everybody for showing up. I hope that next week I will be more energetic and we will go over everything. We'll have a better conversation. I appreciate everybody who did show up, who's watching after the fact and everything. If you are liking this channel, be sure to hit that like button and maybe consider subscribing. It would really help out the channel. Until next time, if I can hit this at the appropriate time, peace.